Hey there, folks. It's my privilege to bring on Kurt Couchman. He's a senior fellow in fiscal policy with our friends at Americans for Prosperity. Kurt Couchman, welcome.
Well, thank you, Eric. It's great to be here today.
Well, it's great to have you. Americans for Prosperity, you do a lot of stuff, but you're the senior fellow in fiscal policy. Okay, that's money. Talk to us. Clearly, the economy is not doing well. Clearly, the Biden-Harris administration and agenda is a nightmare. At least it's clear to me, but put some meat on those bones. Tell us, help us figure out why these things are.
Yeah, absolutely. And Americans for Prosperity, for listeners who aren't familiar with us, we're a nationwide grassroots organization, the premier grassroots organization on the right. We have a presence in every one of the states. We have a lot of capabilities, and we are working to change federal, state, and local policies to advance freedom, prosperity, and peace. So this administration is a disaster for the economy. They spent and borrowed way more than they should have. That's what gave us the inflation that we're suffering under. And they also have laid a heavy regulatory burden across the economy, across a lot of different sectors, especially the energy sector, but they've also been heavy-handed with respect to labor freedom, workers who want to do something a little different from what DC thinks is the right way to do things. They haven't been great on housing policy. I mean, housing is so constrained. That's mostly a state and local issue, but the administration is tightening the screws on some of that. And there's just a lot that needs to be done to get government out of the way so that people can make their own decisions, make their own contracts, and live the kind of life with the kind of choices that they want to have. And this administration has really gotten in the way of a lot of that. And there's other mismanagement we could talk about. I'm not your foreign policy guy, but we could look at some things there as well.
Well, many people who listen to this program know that it's been a nightmare on every level. What fascinates me is how many people are kind of drifting along as American citizens who are not aware. It's one of the reasons that I say to people who listen to this program, you need to be activists. You need to be out there. You better vote. You better push hard, because there are tons of people that are buying the mainstream media's blather and oftentimes lies and propaganda. They really don't have any idea of what's being foisted on them. And it's one of the reasons that we want to partner with Americans for Prosperity, because you guys are trying to get this information out there. But respond to the claim, for example, the Democrats talk about corporate greed. This is unbelievable. They say this is the reason for inflation. Where does that come from? Like, I just love the fact that they come up with that idea. So you can blame, it's corporate greed. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of their whipping boy anytime that there's some problem in the economy. Oh, it's the corporations, but it's a ridiculous claim. It's one of these things that keeps coming back, but it's a fringe theory. It's kind of amazing to see so many Democrats embracing it right now. The real reason we have inflation is because the money supply expanded way faster than the actual production of goods and services in the economy. And that the difference between those two things, that's what gave us the inflation that was driven through the Federal Reserve, but by Congress's overspending and overborrowing problem. So Democrats have been pretty uniformly behind all the legislation that overspent and forced the Treasury to overborrow. So they are casting about for any kind of scapegoat to try to take some of the blame off of them. So they, Senator Casey, I'm from Pennsylvania, and so Senator Casey from Pennsylvania is the leading proponent of this greedflation theory, the claim that corporate profits have been driving inflation, but corporate profits have been stable, more or less, as a share of the economy, right about 10% of the economy. They did bump up a little bit during the pandemic when Washington, D.C. was just dumping money onto the economy and doing a lot of regulatory things as well. So it's not surprising that corporate profits bumped up a little bit then, but so did my checking account and your checking account and everybody's and state and local
government. But the question is, why is corporate profits a problem? In other words, it's money that's going to be spent, that's going to go into the economy. I mean, to me, what it sounds like is they're basically pushing big government socialism. That's basically what's behind all this. So anytime you can demonize people making money, you do that. And so you're kind of creating this narrative, which is, I mean, first of all, it's a lie, but it also it makes people feel like, oh yeah, I know who to blame. It's those rich people. It's the people making money,
Right.
which is completely wrong. I guess I want to talk about also the Vice President Harris and the Democratic Party support Bidenomics. And it was their policy, and they called inflation transitory. I mean, again, just a crazy lie designed to make people think, oh, it's not so bad. It's just you, right?
Right.
It's just you. But it really is bad.
Oh, for sure. And by the way, Bidenomics is the term that they tried as a trial balloon, and it didn't really work. But they didn't care enough to buy the domain name, so we did. So we have Bidenomics.com, and we're telling people all about the failures of the Joe Biden policies with support from his congressional allies. And I mean, you mentioned Vice President Harris. She was the deciding vote for the American Rescue Plan Act that was effectively the cause of inflation that kicked it off. I mean, there was a lot of pressure already building, but that was the thing that made the Federal Reserve lose control. And then she also was the deciding vote on the so-called Inflation Reduction Act passed at the end of last Congress that was really just a green energy boondoggle. All these credits and other subsidies to green energy through the tax code. And it actually created a tradable mechanism so that even if you don't produce any energy, it's basically cap and trade, but through a subsidy mechanism rather than a capping mechanism. So they were able to get that in place, and it's not good. It's really diverting resources from where they would productively serve the American people and putting them into the hands of Wall Street folks and all this green energy stuff that isn't sustainable economically without massive subsidies from taxpayers.
I mean, they spent so much money, our money, taxpayer money. They just dumped it out there on their pet causes. And I think, I guess, trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, they thought it would work maybe, but of course it's made things worse and worse and worse. So I'll have to leave it there. But folks, if you just heard my guest, Kurt Couchman with Americans for Prosperity, just said, if you go to Bidenomics.com, AFP, they own that, and it's all facts. If you want facts to show your neighbors, go to Bidenomics.com. It's too good to be believed. Check it out, Bidenomics.com. Kurt Couchman, thank you.
So great to be with you, Eric. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay. Yeah, Kurt, that was wonderful. Thank you for knowing your stuff. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right.
Happy
Talk
to be back
you again.
anytime.
Thank
Yeah.
you. We'll have you back.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Sounds good. Bye now.